Hey everybody, welcome back to the Daily Kerbal. Last time we left, I was very excited because we were going to start building space stations. My favorite thing ever. And that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be setting up our first orbital station around Kerbin. Very important. It's a very important thing, and I'm not being sarcastic in this case. Building a space station is actually a very important thing because... can I not read it? Oh, I have to choose something first. Alright, well, cupola module, I believe, is something that is required for this. We're going to call this Space Station 1. This is going to be the first type of space station that we build. And basically, space station construction looks like the following. You launch up modules of it individually, and then you sort of, through that rendezvous and docking maneuver, you connect them, and then eventually it ends up being a much larger station itself. It's not, well, currently we don't, send construction ships up there with a bunch of parts and then astronauts in spacesuits start building stuff. That's not how it happens. Yet. We might get there someday in the future, but not today. For now, I am going to just set up my standard spaceship design. Sorry, my standard space station design. Let me quickly take a look at the parameters that we need. Kerbin orbital station requires an antenna, a docking port, and power generation. That's easy enough. It also needs a facility supporting at least 6 Kerbals. Viewing cupola, we already have that. And other than that, just launch into orbit, keep it up there for 10 seconds minimum. We're going to keep it up there for longer than that, obviously. So, question number 1 is probably how are we going to get 6 Kerbals up into space? Well, the viewing cupola has room for 1 Kerbal, and then the habitation module that we use most often, the hitchhiker, has room for 4. So we're going to need a pod for 1 more crew member at least. And considering that I'm going to want to expand this space station in the future with fuel tanks and research equipment and the likes, we're going to want to put a bunch of docking ports all over this thing, basically. Here's how I am going to do it. So we're going to have a viewing cupola like that, and we're going to have one of these structural fuselages over there. It's an adapter, basically. And I'm going to put a crew cabin right there. So it's another 2 people that can fit in there. Then I'm going to take another one of these adapters, place it on the bottom like that, and then we're going to put the hitchhiker storage container right there underneath it, and that is basically going to be our space station. More or less, yeah. So, the question is, I suppose, do I want to add anything? I suppose we can worry about that stuff in the future. For now, the important part is that this is going to be something that we're going to want to expand on later. So let's put some docking ports on it. First of all, the first and most obvious docking port, we're going to put one there. And then I'm thinking about this one right now. I'm actually considering, I think that's what I'm going to do. Hang on. I'm going to replace this with a similarly shaped and sized structural fuselage, like so. And then I am going to take one of these radial attachments, use it bilaterally, place it there, like that. Use this move tool just to make sure that we're centered, like that, yes. And then the crew cabins, that's right, plural, are actually going to go like this. Right side up, doesn't matter. In space, right side up is completely relative. This is going to be our basic space station. And let me add some docking ports onto the... Can I not? I gotta flip it, don't I? Yeah. There we go. And then also, I'm going to put 2 docking ports on the side of this, like that, so we can expand in this direction too. And then what else did it say we needed? We needed to, it's got the docking port, it's got the viewing cupola. It also needs communication and power generation. So the power system for now is basically, this is this is too small to fit anywhere properly. So instead, what we're going to do, although actually, nah, this is fine for now. This is an early model space station anyway. We'll place plenty of power storage, some batteries on the bottom of that, like so, and solar panels, and we'll place 4 of them around there, like that. I'll place some on the cupola as well. For some reason, these disappear under the fairing for some reason. So I will instead, suppose I'll place, it's going to go on the, where'd the other one go? Oh, it's right there. Okay. Symmetry actually worked well this time. We'll place some on the tops and the bottoms of the crew cabins, like that. It's because this is going to bug me forever if I don't get it right. We'll make sure they're both symmetrical. There we go. And I guess maybe place some like on the sides of this. There we go. It's not pretty, but you know. This is our first space station. It doesn't necessarily have to be. Let's hope all those don't burn off in re-entry. This is already something that's going to be pretty difficult to get out of the atmosphere without a fairing. Later on in the game, we're going to get fairings that we can place around these to, you know, get rid of aerodynamic drag. So now the actual launch engine itself. The good news is that we literally only need enough fuel to get out into orbit. We're not going to have to worry about bringing this thing back. We're not going to have to worry about going to the moon. Just get it up there. Get it up there is all we need to do. And to do that, we place two medium-sized fuel canisters and get out my new baby, the mainsail, the most powerful Rockomax engine, if it's that anyway, and to say goodbye to the solid fuel booster and welcome our new twin-bore liquid fuel engine, let us utilize them. Let us utilize 2 of them. This is a launch engine that runs on liquid fuel instead of solid fuel. It's a beast. It's a pretty large thing, and you know, this is probably a little excessive. But if we end up out there on the station, you know, with some extra fuel, all the better for it. For now, we're going to need some aerodynamic parts. There we go, like that. And then we're also going to need to get some structural parts on there to make sure that it doesn't wobble when it gets up. Now, the good news is that if I detach this, these automatically disappear. So these are not going to hold on to the rockets afterwards. Okay, anything else? Oh yes, communication. We still need communication on this. We'll put one of these antennas on the side of the hitchhiker. I could just put it up there. In fact, yeah, let's put it up there like that. Okay. Do I have... I do have lights. I usually like to have lights on my space stations for future docking maneuvers. If I have to, you know, dock with this space station in the dark, it doesn't hurt if we got some lights showing us where to go. In fact, let's make that quadrilateral. Hang on, that's going to cover up. Yeah, that's going to cover up the exit. I guess we'll do it like that then. That more like, yeah. Like I said, not pretty, not too pretty, but it'll do. Also, just for structural stability and for my peace of mind, this is a 70,000 credit beast that we're putting up right now. I'm going to place 4 of these babies down here. I said I'm going to place 4 of these thingies right there to keep that part structurally stable too. Just like these disappear at the uncoupling, if I undock these, those will also disappear. Eventually, I imagine I'm going to be jettisoning these fuel canisters because it doesn't, let's be honest, just because it doesn't look good. There. Staging. All set. And the question is, so whoever goes up in this station is going to stay up there. Danzer has already been to the moon. Obviously, we'll do, you know, missions where we switch out the crew every now and then. I think that's going to be it. It's got a docking port, can generate power, has an antenna. Oh yes, there's one other thing that I like to do when I do this. Now, the people who requested this, the ones who gave me the contract, is Kerman's Construction Emporium, Dinkelstein Kerman's Construction Emporium. So I'm going to switch out the mission flag and look for, there it is, Dinkelstein's Construction. And now, the Dinkelstein-Kerman Construction logo is going to be on this station. I mean, they paid for it, right? They're the ones who hired me to build the station for them. They might as well have their name on it. And once the space station gets up into orbit, we're going to name it after them, too. If we want, you know, space flight to be profitable, we want there to continuously be money and stuff like this, then this is probably the sacrifices we're going to have to make. It's not a big one. I mean, company gets a space station named after it after they paid for it. Seemed good to me. All right, crew's ready. Danzer's ready for launch. I guess then we're going. I pushed the wrong button, didn't I? All right. Let's get the space station back up there. Put Danzer in the pilot seat and let's launch it. Okay, I'm going to activate my SAS. I'm going to throttle up 2/3 of the way again. Well, it's a good thing these are liquid fuel engines. That means that we get to adjust the speed as need be. Should help our launches a lot better. Oh crap, hang on. I gotta go back to the... I gotta go back because I forgot something while I was putting on aerodynamic parts. We need winglets, obviously. Let's put 2 winglets on this one. 4 winglets on this one. There. Just to help us out while going through atmosphere. Save it. Launch it. Didn't change my pilot, did it? No. Okay. Once again, SAS on. Throttle 2/3 of the way up, and launch. There she goes. That's a fairly fast liftoff. I imagine that the non-aerodynamic nature of this particular craft is going to cause us some trouble. So I'm deliberately not going to speed up too much. In this density of atmosphere, I think like 350 to 400 meters per second is the speed that I'm comfortable going. It'll also save us fuel, obviously, so that's a good thing. We're already starting to generate drag, and we're tipping. Yep. Yep. Let's try that again. I know this thing will fly because I've flown it before. However, I suppose, just for the sake of being safe, suppose I could place a stability enhancer on it. There. Let's try now. Let's hope those reaction wheels count for something. I wonder what it is that pulled us down that way. I mean, this is not an aerodynamic vessel by any stretch of the imagination. But it does fill all of the contract requirements. And the craft is more or less symmetrical too, so it shouldn't have significant unbalance in any direction. It's like I'm going to have to keep this thing manually stable, and it didn't work. Alright, so what's wrong with this? We probably went too fast. Alright. So clearly, at a certain speed, it tends to drop. Let's maybe not go so fast this time. Let's accelerate up to 200 meters per second, because it was still going fine at that speed, and let's keep it there. This is a simple put an object in orbit mission. We're not gonna overcomplicate this. Alright. Now just keep her at this speed. Still be accelerating though. Fuel indicator up. Maybe gently start a gravity turn. Oh, that tips it somewhat. It's fine though. We can hold it. I am having to manually fight against the ship's attempt to pull more towards the west. Our apoapsis is also... Oh, and now we're tipping that way. Crap. What the heck is going wrong here? The ship is aerodynamically sound. It's got stability on it. Why do you not... I have done this launch before. This is not something that has happened to me previously. Can we save this? Behaving. Come on. It's okay. This is actually not that bad at all. Even though we did kind of a flip in, you know, mid-space flight. We have an acceptable apoapsis. More than enough power. So at this point, I think I can kind of just bring her down to the horizon, point her in the right direction, and see what happens. Use that one. All right. I tend to get a little greedy with my space stations. And what I mean by that is, just because I'm impatient and I don't necessarily enjoy doing multiple orbital maneuvers, considering all the trouble that it takes to successfully, you know, accomplish one. I tend to build rather large spaceship parts and try to carry those up instead of building, you know, multiple small ones. I got in trouble with this with my moon landings, for example. Already one of my problems is that our orbit is not equatorial. I think we're going to have after orbiting, we might not have enough fuel left. Oops. We might not have enough fuel left to correct that later. But I mean, we're speeding up. We're speeding up pretty well. Let's just keep heading like that. This could be a lot worse. I'm actually just going to cut the engine there. Fly up to the apoapsis. Alright. And let's burn some more. Prograde burns are more effective near apoapsis. Again, just like everything else in this game, I cannot adequately explain the physics of it, but after having played this game many times, I do have a feel for it. Like I can understand why it is that way, but I couldn't give you an adequate explanation as to why. Okay, orbit will be achieved very shortly. We are burning fuel at an acceptable rate. Okay, now I'm going to continue to push our apoapsis up to 200,000 meters. That is going to be our space station's permanent position. Alright, and then we're going to do the same with the periapsis. We want our space station to be at an even 200,000 meter orbit. To put that in perspective, I believe the International Space Station is at an oops, that's retrograde, is at an orbit of 200 and, oh my goodness, I heard this number just the other day because as of the day that I'm recording this, yesterday 3 pilots were just brought back down from the International Space Station, 3 astronauts, 2 Americans and the Russian commander. Okay, come on. It's gonna get that right there. Okay, and I was watching the broadcast. I was watching when they landed, and the person who was narrating the events did mention the height at which the International Space Station was flying. It was, I think it was 250 miles. Either miles. This the thing is that the American space program, I believe, still does all of their measurements and stuff in feet and inches, and they haven't adapted the metric system yet. Sweet. Orbital station is now constructed. Now, before we head back to Earth and conclude this episode, I am going to want to set... Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Hang on. Gonna have to cycle through the focus. Gotta do it again because I overshot it. There we are. I want to set Kerbin... Crap. I want to set Kerbin... Actually, I might as well just use Samry's capsule as a... Because I believe Samry's capsule is on an equatorial orbit. It looks like it is. So let us situate ourselves in an anti-normal position. I'll turn this off. Nice and slow. We're maneuvering a very big behemoth right now. Okay. Here we go. Position ourselves in the anti-normal vector, pointing downwards, in other words. And then wait till we arrive... Nope, I went to the wrong node. Crap. From far out, that looked the other way. Alright, well, in that case, let's flip over to the normal vector. And let's bring this descent node down to 0. Or up, in this case, since this is negative. Okay. Now let us bring ourselves ahead. Alright, there we go. And burn. 907654321 0. Practically 0. Sweet. Equatorial orbit. 204 by 200. You know what? I'll take it. Ladies and gentlemen, we have our first space station. I'm going to hang on to this for now because that is fuel that we can use, and this is going to be up here permanently until the day we decide to decommission it or replace it with a new space station. This is going to be the center of our space exploration attempts. Maybe not necessarily for activities around Kerbin and its own astral bodies, but certainly for interplanetary missions, we're almost always going to be starting from here. Anyway, in order to close off this episode, I will turn on the lights so we can see how the pretty thing looks like from up there. Let us quickly see... Oops, not what I meant to do. Get back in. Let us quickly see what Danzer sees, right? She's looking up now through the circular part of the module. She has to look up in order to see Kerbin. The circular window is where she's looking generally. Hang on, let me switch the camera back out so you can see it. I'm going to zoom in as much as I can, and then let us activate the internal... Can I not? There we go. The internal overlay. There she is. You can see her right there. Lying on her back, basically, from our perspective. From her perspective, she's sitting and looking forward. And then here we have the crew pods. Here we have the places where the crew is going to be staying on their visits to the station. And then the last thing that we're going to do is I'm going to give this thing a new name. We will rename this vessel, and we are going to call it... Is that how you spell it? Dinkelstein's Kerbin Station. We're going to give it the station designation. That's how it's going to pop up on our map from now on. Accept. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for witnessing with me the very first space station that we bring up into orbit of Kerbin in our space program. Hopefully a prosperous future awaits it with many expansions, many new uses, and visitors from all over the cosmos, from many different planets on their trips to Kerbin and away from it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time when we might either continue to build on this, we might perform another atmospheric flight because we still have measurements to take up there. Anyway, whatever our next mission is, I will see you then. Bye-bye.